In this chapter, we will talk about managing logistics internationally. This chapter discusses the early roots of logistics in international transport and its connection to economic development. It highlights how logistics has evolved over time, allowing for global connectivity and trade. Also, it explores the challenges and complexities involved in creating truly global supply chains, such as local autonomy, language barriers, uncertainty, coordination issues, and government interventions. It emphasizes that while internationalization is a growing feature in supply chains, not all supply chains need to be fully globalized. Also, the need to factor in risks, environmental considerations, and social responsibility when designing international logistics operations. The overall aim of the chapter is to analyze the internationalization of logistics and discuss the organization of international supply chains. Okay. This flowchart explains the management of international logistics. It shows how different factors enable and drive the process of managing the flow of goods and services across borders. It also shows the activities involved in designing, controlling, and governing the logistics network, as well as the risks that may arise from it. Here are some key points from the flowchart. Enablers. These are the factors that make international logistics possible and efficient. They include commoditized transportation, which means standardized and low-cost modes of transport, and information and communication technology, which means advanced and reliable systems for data exchange and coordination. Drivers. These are the factors that motivate and influence international logistics. They include factor costs, which means the differences in the costs of production inputs, such as labor, capital, and materials, across countries, and economies of scale, which means the benefits of producing large quantities of output at lower costs per unit. Management of international logistics. This is the central focus of the flowchart, and it refers to the planning, implementation, and control of the movement and storage of goods and services across borders. It involves balancing the trade-offs between efficiency and responsiveness, as well as managing the complexity and uncertainty of the global environment. Activities. These are the tasks and functions that result from the management of international logistics. They include network design, which means the configuration and optimization of the logistics infrastructure, such as facilities, transportation, and inventory. Risk management, which means the identification, assessment, and mitigation of potential threats and disruptions to the logistics network. And governance, which means the establishment and enforcement of rules, norms, and standards for the logistics network. Risks. These are the challenges and problems that may arise from the management of international logistics. They include local responsiveness/time to market issues, which means the difficulty of meeting the diverse and changing needs and preferences of customers in different markets, inventory and handling costs, which means the expenses associated with storing and moving goods and services across borders, transportation breakdowns, which means the failures or delays of transport modes or routes, and geopolitical threats, which means the risks of war, terror, or other political or social conflicts that may affect the logistics network. Internationalization. The designing of a product in such a way that it will meet the needs of users in many countries or can be easily adapted to do so. This discusses the business approach towards internationalization and raises three questions related to cross-border logistics. Does internationalization imply a universal global approach to supply chain management? The answer to this question is no. The concept of structuring the supply chain with uniform approaches in each country, referred to as colonization, as exemplified by McDonald's, is losing ground. Companies are recognizing the need for localization in areas such as marketing and local relations to respond to local quality crises and competition. Regional variations in the application of international principles are observed in supply chains. Does internationalization require a global presence in every market? Again, the answer is presented as no. Companies like Coca-Cola and Procter & Gamble have abandoned the idea of a universal product, marketing, and production model in favor of local brands and product varieties. While localization is not the new mainstay, there is a shift between local and global extremes, where companies like Procter & Gamble and Unilever will find themselves competing in a new area. Last question. Does internationalization distinguish between companies that globally transfer knowledge and those that do not? In fact, there is no clear distinction in this regard. Companies have different strategies and approaches to internationalization, and the importance of drivers such as low costs, market expansion, and knowledge exposure varies depending on the company and its internationalization strategy. The impact of global shifts in international investment and trade on logistics requirements, as well as the emergence of a fourth generation that recognizes the trade-off between local market responsiveness, environmental concerns, and the benefits of internationalization. Overall, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to internationalization, and companies employ different strategies based on their specific circumstances and objectives. Logistical implications of internationalization. This slide discusses the consequences of internationalizing logistics networks on inventory, handling, and transport policies. 1. Inventory. Centralizing inventories across multiple countries can be advantageous in terms of reducing inventory holding costs and maintaining optimal inventory levels, especially for high-value products. However, internationalization may lead to product proliferation due to the need for localization and catering to specific local product and market opportunities. 2. Handling illogistic service practices and regulations related to storage and transport may vary across countries. Adjusting handling practices accordingly is essential for internationalization. Additionally, implementing best practices across different facilities can aid the internationalization process. 3. Transport. Internationalization extends logistics pipelines, requiring them to cope with infrastructure differences between countries while ensuring timely delivery. This may drive the need for localization. On the other hand, the opportunity for global consolidation may drive international centralization. Also, this highlights the trade-off between the benefits of consolidating operations globally and the need to compete in a timely manner. Furthermore, it touches on the significance of time to market in managing the global logistics pipeline. There are two specific issues related to time to market: product obsolescence and inventory holding costs. Product obsolescence. Extended lead times in international logistics pipelines increase the risk of products becoming obsolete during transit, particularly for industries with rapid technological development and fashion goods. Inventory holding costs. The time spent in the logistics pipeline increases the cost of holding inventory. Delays occur during physical transit, consolidation points, and customs procedures, further increasing inventory holding costs. Global consolidation. It involves maximizing the use of assets and securing lowest cost resources. It includes sourcing commodity items from low-wage economies, concentrating operations at specific sites, and utilizing bulk transportation. The aim is to minimize costs, achieve economies of scale, and leverage global purchasing power. Internationally operating organizations seek to consolidate purchasing across divisions and companies, allowing them to minimize costs and seek economies of scale. They also constantly search for cheaper sources of labor and materials, which has led to manufacturing shifting from developed industrial regions to lower-cost economies. However, this search for lower costs has also resulted in some companies relocating facilities to lower-wage countries in Asia, North Africa, and South America. Overall, the complexities and considerations involved in internationalizing logistics networks, including inventory management, handling practices, transport logistics, time to market, and the trade-offs between global consolidation and local responsiveness. The risks involved in international logistics, emphasizing the need for companies to adapt to the new supply chain reality and develop effective risk management approaches. Geopolitical threats. Recent events, such as the 2003 SARS crisis and the Second Gulf War, have highlighted the impact of geopolitical risks on supply chain continuity and execution feasibility. These events required major trade route alterations and imposed restrictions on global travel. Heightened government security measures and screening procedures also indicate the risks involved in international logistics, emphasizing that logistics, which enable the global economy, should not be taken for granted, and companies need to consider the associated risks. Transportation breakdowns. While transportation is often seen as a commodity, it is not immune to problems. Like an example of a several-week strike in the U.S. West Coast ports in 2002, which nearly crippled the U.S. economy. The strike resulted in delayed shipments, factory shutdowns, empty stores, and disruptions in global trade. The impact extended beyond the ports, affecting other shipping routes, port regions, and different modes of transportation. The passage demonstrates that transportation breakdowns can have far-reaching consequences, emphasizing the need for risk management in logistics. This highlights the importance of continuous risk management and the consequences of inadequate preparedness, such as statistics from Helfrich and Cook, 2002, that show the lack of disaster recovery plans, limited coverage of total organizational recovery, insufficient steps to maintain operational supply chains, low adoption of crisis management teams and supply chain security teams, and the potential for businesses to permanently close after major damages. Managers might underestimate their vulnerability, assume government assistance, or prioritize competing business issues. To address these challenges, Peck, 2003, offers a self-assessment for supply chain risk and an operational level toolkit, providing tools and resources for managing risks in supply chains. The tendency towards internationalization. The evolution of production organization in international companies, particularly in Europe, and introduces the concept of the focused factory strategy. 1. National production organization. Initially, international companies would have organized their production nationally. This means that factories in each country would have manufactured the full range of products to supply the respective country's market. This setup allowed for localized production and distribution. 2. Consolidation at a single site. Over time, the factories in each country may have been consolidated into a single site. This single site would then be responsible for producing all the products for the entire country. This consolidation of production facilities allowed for economies of scale and potentially improved efficiency. 3. Focused factory strategy. The focused factory strategy involves companies consolidating the production of specific products within dedicated factories. These factories then supply their products to a broad international market while focusing on a limited segment of the product assortment. This strategy aims to achieve cost advantages for the global company, particularly in terms of production costs. However, while the focused factory strategy may deliver cost advantages in terms of production costs, it may not necessarily result in cost advantages for inventory holding costs and transport costs. This implies that although consolidating production may be efficient and cost-effective, it may introduce challenges in managing inventory and transportation logistics across different markets. This graphical representation explains the relationship between delivery time, level of centralization, and the importance of distribution and inventory costs. It shows how different levels of inventory location affect the trade-offs between customer service and logistics costs. Here are some key points from the image. Local inventories. These are inventories that are located close to the customers, which means they can provide shorter delivery times and higher customer service levels. However, they also imply higher distribution costs, as more facilities and transportation are needed to maintain them. Local inventories are more suitable when distribution costs are more important than inventory costs and when demand volatility is low. Continental level of centralization. This is a level of inventory location that involves centralizing inventories at a continental scale, such as Europe or Asia. This means that delivery times are longer and customer service levels are lower, as customers have to wait longer for their orders. However, this also implies lower distribution costs, as fewer facilities and transportation are needed to maintain them. Continental level of centralization is more suitable when inventory costs are more important than distribution costs, and when demand volatility is high. International. This is a level of inventory location that falls in between local and continental levels, which means it involves some degree of centralization and some degree of localization. This means that delivery times, customer service levels, distribution costs, and inventory costs are all moderate, as they depend on the specific location and market conditions. International level of inventory location is more suitable when both distribution and inventory costs are equally important and when demand volatility is moderate. This diagram illustrates a delivery strategy from a factory/vendor to the final destination. It shows 3 different stages of the delivery process involving regional distribution centers and local transshipment points. Here are some key points from the diagram. Stage A. This is the simplest stage, where goods are delivered directly from the factory/vendor to local transshipment points, which are the locations where goods are transferred from one mode of transport to another. This stage minimizes inventory costs, as goods are not stored in intermediate facilities, but it may increase transportation costs, as more vehicles and routes are needed. Stage B. This is a more complex stage, where goods are first sent to regional distribution centers, which are the facilities that store and distribute goods within a region, before reaching local transshipment points. This stage reduces transportation costs, as fewer vehicles and routes are needed, but it may increase inventory costs, as goods are stored in intermediate facilities. Stage C. This is the most complex stage, where goods are sent to multiple regional distribution centers that are connected in a network, before reaching local transshipment points. This stage allows for more flexibility and responsiveness, as goods can be moved between different regions according to demand. But it also increases both transportation and inventory costs, as more facilities and connections are needed. This diagram compares a domestic pipeline and a global pipeline, showing the different stages and their respective unit inventories. It shows how the length and complexity of the distribution channels affect the total inventory level. Here are some key points from the diagram. Domestic pipeline. This is a shorter and simpler pipeline where goods are delivered from the plant to the distribution center and then to the local transshipment point. The total inventory level is 90 units, which is the sum of the units at each stage. This pipeline has lower inventory costs, but it may have higher transportation costs or lower customer service levels, depending on the distance and demand. Global pipeline. This is a longer and more complex pipeline where goods are delivered from the plant to the origin forwarder, then to the ocean transit, then to the destination forwarder, then to the distribution center, and finally to the local transshipment point. The total inventory level is 170 units, which is the sum of the units at each stage. This pipeline has higher inventory costs, but it may have lower transportation costs or higher customer service levels, depending on the trade agreements and market conditions. This graph illustrating the relationship between costs, lead time, and the impact of rising fuel costs. It shows how the cost of transportation and inventory changes as the time required to deliver goods increases. Here are some key points from the image. Transportation cost increases due to rising fuel costs. This curve shows that as the lead time, the time between placing an order and receiving it, increases, the transportation cost also increases significantly. This is because longer lead times mean more fuel consumption and higher fuel prices. This curve rises sharply as lead time increases. Inventory costs. More interesting to increase inventory due to higher fuel prices or increased lead times. This curve shows that as the lead time increases, the inventory cost also increases, but at a less steep rate than the transportation cost. This is because holding more inventory can reduce the need for frequent transportation and mitigate the effects of rising fuel costs or increased lead times. This curve rises moderately as lead time increases. Okay, now location analysis. This flowchart outlines the phases and geographical scopes involved in selecting a location for investment or restructuring in a plant network. It shows how decisions are made at different levels of detail and complexity, from strategic to operational. Here are some key points from the flowchart. Phase. This is the process of planning and implementing the project, from the initial strategic decision to the final location selection. It involves 4 steps: creating a project plan, specifying the project plan, implementing the plan, and selecting a location. Geographical scope. This is the level of detail and complexity of the location analysis, from the broad continental level to the specific location level. It involves 4 levels: continent, country, region, and location. Relationship between phase and geographical scope. The flowchart shows that as the phase progresses from strategic to operational, the geographical scope narrows down from continent to location. This means that the project plan becomes more specific and detailed as the location analysis becomes more focused and precise. As you see in location analysis, this table trade-offs between 2 locations. It compares 2 regions, A and B. based on various location criteria, each with an assigned weight. The scores for each criterion are summed to give a total score for each region. Here are some key points from the table. Location criteria. These are the factors that affect the suitability of a location for investment or restructuring. They include railways, water connections, road connections, site availability, central location, weight. This is the relative importance of each criterion, ranging from 1 to 3. The higher the weight, the more significant the criterion is for the location decision. Score Region A. This is the score given to Region A for each criterion based on some evaluation method. The total score for Region A is 19, which is the sum of the scores for each criterion. Score Region B. This is the score given to Region B for each criterion based on some evaluation method. The total score for Region B is 22, which is the sum of the scores for each criterion. Comparison. Based on the table, Region B has a higher total score than Region A, which means it is more favorable for investment or restructuring. Region B has higher scores for road connections, site availability, and central location, while Region A has higher scores for railways and water connections. Okay. Organizing for international logistics. There are 3 key elements in organizing for international logistics: layering and tiering, the evolving role of individual plants, and reconfiguration processes. Let's explore each of these elements. 1. Layering and tiering. Layering and tiering refer to the hierarchical structure and coordination of logistics activities within an organization. In international logistics, companies often have multiple layers of logistics operations to effectively manage their global supply chains. These layers can include regional hubs, distribution centers, and local warehouses. Each layer is responsible for specific functions, such as inventory management, order fulfillment, and transportation within a particular geographic area. Layering and tiering help optimize logistics operations by aligning activities with the unique requirements of different markets or regions. 2. Evolving role of individual plants. The role of individual plants within an international logistics network is not static, but evolves over time. Initially, companies may have separate plants in different countries, each producing a full range of products for the local market. As the company expands and gains efficiency, it may consolidate production at specific plants, making them responsible for manufacturing products for multiple countries or regions. This evolution is driven by factors such as cost optimization, economies of scale, and market demand. The evolving role of individual plants allows companies to streamline production, reduce costs, and adapt to changing market dynamics. 3. Reconfiguration processes. Reconfiguration processes involve making strategic changes to the logistics network to improve performance and respond to market demands. These processes can include reorganizing the distribution network, modifying transportation routes, adjusting inventory levels, or implementing new technology systems. Reconfiguration is a dynamic process that requires continuous evaluation and adjustment to ensure optimal efficiency and responsiveness. Companies may undertake reconfiguration processes in response to factors such as changes in customer preferences, market expansion, mergers or acquisitions, or shifts in global trade patterns. Last topic we have: Corporate social responsibility in the supply chain involves the integration of ethical, social, and environmental considerations into a company's procurement and distribution processes. This approach encompasses ethical sourcing practices such as fair labor conditions and human rights protection, as well as a commitment to environmental sustainability, minimizing waste, and using eco-friendly materials. CSR in the supply chain also includes promoting diversity through supplier diversity initiatives, ensuring transparency and traceability in the sourcing of products, engaging with local communities, and implementing robust governance mechanisms. Companies practicing CSR in the supply chain recognize the importance of continuous improvement, collaboration with stakeholders, risk management, and compliance with relevant regulations. By adopting these principles, businesses not only contribute to societal well-being, but also build trust, attract socially conscious stakeholders, and establish a sustainable and responsible business model.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe to channel.